Express protocol. And hopefully he's going to talk to us about the difference in speeds of each and how, and the use of each, and the tools that are involved in making each of those vehicles work. Okay, Larry, you have anything from the head yet? Unmute Larry.
Okay. Bert put a report out regarding the boards and meetings, and there's a very extensive report. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about every month. The only thing new that was the website, which they're still working on, but they got it pretty well complete. But they got more yet, more things to do. So that's about all I can report from the board. You can it's not over and above what the Bert put out. Bert put out a darn comprehensive board report.
Okay, any other announcements? Any other announcements from anyone? Anything new that we ought to know about? Anyone have new kids or et cetera? Okay. We're going to turn the show over to Tim now. He's going to have a few extra minutes. We're going to give it to Tim. And Tim that can talk with never stopping. So we're going to give him as much time as he can use. We'll start a recorder right now. All right, Tim.
I may leave from time to time.
Hang loose for a minute. Give me a second.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Now I'm trying to set up to give you a document. I got two little wrinkles that I have to do to get this all accomplished. So hang loose for a moment. Come on. What the heck? Oh, nuts. I'm sorry about the delay here at the moment, but if I don't find what I've got here, where did you put it? Oh, heck, this is one of the headaches with some of this. I'm real sorry about this, taking extra time here. But what the heck? Well, I'm going to have to play this by ear. All right. No. All right, let's see if I can share the screen at least. Something else didn't work. I see why. Wonder I'm going crackers. Hang loose. This is playing with 3 machines, so that's where my problems come in. Let's try this one again. And
Is
maybe
everybody
I-
else hearing all this feedback?
No. Yes,
Ah, some are, some aren't.
Two birds in the background, they're whistling.
that's
Okay.
right. Try Tim's machine.
That was
On,
me.
on the chat, if you go down to chat, you will see I've put up there a file, a PDF file for the presentation. Click on that. It'll put the file down in your download folder where you can refer to it. So I got that piece. Now we'll try again on the other. There we go. Now I gotta do one setting or this ain't gonna work. And okay. I'm doing 5 videos and these do an excellent job.
For many years, PCs primarily used mechanical hard drives, which have great capacity potential but slow speeds. The maximum data transfer speed of mechanical
see a
hard
picture,
drives
Tim.
is less of an issue than the slow seek times. Due to the spinning disk mechanism in a mechanical hard drive, the actuator arm needs to position itself in the right location on the track to find the data.
Jim,
And
we
this
only see
is
your
known as
screen.
seek time.
Pardon?
Modern hard drives have a seek time
Hang
of
on.
around 5
Hang
to
on.
10 milliseconds.
Hang on. What did you say?
We only see your screen. We don't see the video.
You don't see the video?
No, we don't. We hear the sound, but that's all.
All right, I'll have to stop that and share again. And I gotta make sure about sound. Okay, sound settings okay. So I'm gonna back this up. This is one of the headaches about playing any kind of a video. Not a joke.
For many years, PCs primarily used mechanical hard drives, which have great capacity potential but slow speeds. The maximum data transfer speed of mechanical hard drives is less of an issue than the slow seek times. Due to the spinning disk mechanism in a mechanical hard drive, the actuator arm needs to position itself in the right location on the track to find the data, and this is known as seek time. Modern hard drives have a seek time of around 5 to 10 milliseconds. An SSD has no moving parts, which is why it's called a solid-state drive. It uses NAND flash memory chips, which are also found in USB drives, phones, and plenty of other devices. Since NAND flash doesn't have to physically move to find data, there is no seek time. Instead, the delay in finding data for SSDs is known as latency, and is only around 30 to 100 microseconds. This is one major reason why solid-state drives provide such a massive boost in performance over mechanical hard drives. Data requests are handled much more quickly, allowing for snappier performance and faster loading times. However, the problem with traditional 2.5-inch SSDs is that they are stuck on an interface created for mechanical hard drives, known as Serial ATA or SATA. The third generation of this interface was first released in 2009 and has a maximum theoretical rate of 600 megabytes per second. SATA 3 is perfectly fine for mechanical hard drives, which have slow seek times and a sequential transfer rate of around 180 megabytes a second. While this interface was also good for SSDs initially, they quickly maxed out the transfer rate and became bottlenecked. NAND flash can go much faster. A replacement was needed, and a new interface created specifically for SSDs, known as M.2, arrived on the market. An M.2 slot connects to a motherboard directly, which also provides it with power. M.2 can support SATA interface SSDs in this new form factor, but it has brought about a new high-speed SSD known as NVMe or Non-Volatile Memory Express. An M.2 slot, which supports NVMe drives, allows the SSD to tap into the high-speed PCI Express 3.0 bus on your motherboard, which is traditionally used for your graphics card or other expansion cards. The benefit of using PCI Express as the data highway is that it reduces latency even further to around 10 microseconds, and it also increases the maximum transfer speed to 3 gigabytes a second. What NVMe can transfer in 1 second would take the average mechanical hard drive 17 seconds. That's 17 times faster. But even this fairly new interface has already been maxed out. To continue pushing storage speeds forward, PCI Express 4.0 for motherboards was released in July 2019. Motherboards featuring PCI Express 4.0 allow NVMe drives which support this bus to transfer data at up to double the rate of PCI Express 3.0. It won't be long before the PCI Express 4.0 bus is maxed out as well. But don't worry, PCI Express 5 and 6 are already in the works. What you can count on is the M.2 slot staying on motherboards for a while yet. The only problem is that they take up quite a lot of space, and even full-size ATX boards rarely have more than a couple of M.2 slots. This means the old SATA interface still has plenty of life left in it, even if it won't see any updates in the future. I hope that explanation has helped you to get a better understanding of the differences between each drive, and that's all for this one.
Okay, now, I gotta preface that by saying that PCI 5 is already out. If you have PCI 4 on a fairly new machine, you're likely going to need a heatsink. The label that he showed you on that M.2 drive is a heatsink for PCI 3, but on PCI 4, the higher speed, you'll need at least an aluminum heatsink also on the drive. With PCI 5 and higher, you may be forced to go into liquid cooling like high-end gamers do on the CPU and the GPU, which is your graphical user interface. It's a pain in the butt, but heat comes with high speed, so you have to accept that factor. Now I'm going to see if I can get the next one going. Let's see, I gotta. Now, let's see if I can get rid of this one here. Maybe, yeah, I knew we were going to do that. You rotten. All right. I gotta do a double take. I gotta bring up this to bring up the next video. Then I gotta stop sharing to share that one. And I'll stop that and back it up and start playing again.
Hello everyone, today I'm gonna try to explain what's the difference between hard drive and 2.5-inch SSD, NVMe and M.2 SATA and M-SATA. The difference in these drives is a different type of connection to the laptop or PC motherboard. If you compare the 2.5-inch hard drive and the SSD with the same 2.5-inch form factor, you will see that the connection interface is the same SATA type. That is, if you want to replace your old hard drive with a fast SSD drive, there will be no problems because the SATA interface is compatible with other type of connection, SATA 1, SATA 2 or SATA 3. But unfortunately you can't install M.2 SSD in socket of SATA hard drive. It is physically impossible. You also cannot install M.2 SSD in socket of the M-SATA. These drives, as you can see, also have different socket connection. With the hard drive and SSD with 2.0-inch form factor, everything quite simple. And just without any problem you can replace M-SATA, because this type of drive is available only in one form factor and with one type of connection. We still have M.2 SSD with different size, with different bus type, with different case, and from this many people have confusion. What kind of M.2 SSD should I buy when upgrading my computer? Okay, let's talk about M.2 SSD. M.2 SSD has a different size. There are only 4 of them: 2230, 2242, 2260, and the most popular 2280. The first 2 numbers indicate the width with the board. The second 2 numbers are the length. As a rule, it is indicate how long the M.2 motherboard support. Now let's turn on the types of M.2 drive. M.2 storage can be in SATA and NVMe types. So, what's the difference between M.2 SATA and M.2 NVMe? SATA M.2 SSD and 2.5-inch SSD has the same specifications. M.2 NVMe work on the PCI Express bus, and these are completely different identification and speed that is much higher than the SATA bus. To explain very briefly, NVMe is type of bus that works much faster than the SATA bus. For example, modern motherboard use SATA 3 with maximum speed of 600 MB per second. NVMe drive provides write speed up to 3500 MB per second. This is 7 times more than SATA. Yes, these 2 boards are very similar in appearance, but have a slight difference in the connection socket. As a rule, M.2 SATA supports 2 keys, M plus B. The M.2 NVMe drive working on the PCI Express bus will have only 1 M key. What does this all mean? I shall explain. M.2 SATA board with the M plus B key can be installed in most slots, while the M.2 NVMe with the M key is physically impossible to install in the B slot. So, pay attention to which slot installed on your computer motherboard. How it looks in practice. Take for example the Asus motherboard that has M.2 socket under the KM on board, which means that you can install the M.2 SATA. You can also install M.2 NVMe SSD, also the connection does not interfere. All the same with laptops. Let me show you on Asus laptop. On the motherboard of this laptop there is socket for M.2 SSD, also under 1 km, and therefore you can connect M.2 SATA and also M.2 NVMe. But here the question may arise whether the M.2 NVMe will be compatible with your laptop. For example, an Asus X570 laptop after detect which type M.2 SSD is connected, and in most modern laptop the BIOS after detect the drive. Many manufacturers install on the motherboard slot for M.2 with the key M, and with the support of the bus to choose SATA or PCI Express. That is, you buy M.2 SATA or M.2 NVMe and any of drives will work. But there are cases when the motherboard works only one of 2 buses and does not support, for example, the new NVMe standard or the old SATA. To make sure that your motherboard is compatible with SSD M.2 drive, I will show you an example with one of the motherboard of Asus. Enter the BIOS, then in the device section and find the line M.2 configuration. Then in the drop-down menu you can see that the motherboard supports SATA and PCI Express bus, and therefore M.2 SATA and M.2 NVMe will work on such a motherboard. But it is also worth considering that such a setting may not be in your BIOS, but at the same time your laptop or PC will detect and work with both M.2 SATA and M.2 NVMe. Therefore, first read the specification of your laptop or motherboard before buying M.2 SSD storage. What to do if you bought M.2 SATA but didn't check the presence of M.2 socket on motherboard and your laptop only supports 2.5 SATA standard? In this case, there is quite large choice of different adapters. For all these adapters I leave link in the description where you can buy them. Such adapter allows you to connect M.2 SATA and make it a standard 2.5-inch SSD storage. But if you try to connect M.2 NVMe drive to such adapter, you will not success because the connector is not compatible. There are also adapters for the M SATA storage that make the 2.5 SATA standard out of it. Even for the 2230 M.2 SATA standard, there is adapter that converts M.2 SATA to M SATA, after which you connect to the adapter again and make 2.5 SATA. Yes, here is a sandwich, but it works. Well, I hope this video was useful for you. To all adapters and type of storage you will find links in the description under the video, and if you have question about compatible of drive with your laptop or PC, ask them in the comments.
Okay, I'll try and do the next one.
All right, this morning I'm going to talk about what I had no idea even existed a month and a half ago. It's a new format for solid state drives, and it's called the M.2.
Oops, I gotta stop to share this video. This is a pain in the butt, but I've got 5 of these videos, and it's better than listening to me. This is from Tech Seniors that broadcast 10:30 to noon, well, 12:20 p.m. on Monday mornings. And it's it has a lot of different topics. This happened to be one I picked up in
All
February.
right, this morning I'm going to talk about what I had no idea even existed a month and a half ago. It's a new format for solid state drives, and it's called the M.2. And once again, this is computer storage drives becoming smaller and faster. So just a real brief history of storage drives that have transitioned over the years. In the beginning, the old line hard disk drive, 3.5 inch, that has lasted, think about it, for more than 35 years. I can remember working in an office atmosphere in the late 80s when we got our first hard drive on a computer, and it was 40 megabytes. And we all talked about it and said, how will we ever use that much space? And that capacity, as we all know, for the typical home user now has grew to 4 terabytes and larger. Those were old hard drives, magnetic heads, spinning platters at either 5,400 or 7,200 RPM often resulted in failure over time. And then the 2.5-inch hard disk drive was created because that smaller size was initially wonderful to be placed in laptops, and that evolved into the 2.5-inch solid-state drive with no moving parts. Now, the M.2 drive became available about 5 years ago, but except for enterprise systems and ultrabooks, it was really considered too expensive for typical home users. So when I was teaching at the local college, I would often tell my students, electronics is the only industry I can think of where each year the products get better, yet cost less, right? Think about that. Anyway, this is what happened with the M.2 drive. And now the consumer can begin to benefit from the physical and internal advantages of this format. So it's a smaller size with faster read and write speeds. Now today, the M.2 solid drive is readily available as a storage device option in new computers. Now look at that, from that picture, you can see that this form factor resembles a stick of gum. It's considerably smaller than the 2.5-inch solid state drive, and it plugs directly into the motherboard like a memory stick. This provides faster read and write speeds and eliminates the need for power and data cables. Now it's adaptable too. It achieves its fastest speeds when directly connected to the motherboard. But if you really wanted to buy one now and use it on an older desktop, you could use a PCIe interface adapter or even an external enclosure that would be connected to an available USB 3.1 port. So I did a performance test now on a regular solid state drive versus a hard disk drive. So this is what I call my music computer. I keep almost all my music on this one computer, and it has two drives. It has a Samsung 1 terabyte 2.5-inch solid state drive. That came out with a read speed of 318 megabytes per second and a write speed of 495. And on that same laptop with a mechanical 2 terabyte drive, the read speed was only 68 and a write speed of 73. So that's just in a normal solid state drive versus a hard disk drive. You can see the difference in the speeds. And then I did a performance test with my old desktop, and this has the a little bit higher end Samsung solid state drive. And this one came up with a read speed of 541 and a write speed of 484. Much, much faster than the hard disk drive. So with these faster read and write speeds, first of all, in that picture, you can see the difference in size between a 2.5-inch solid state drive and the new M.2 drive. And most 2.5-inch drives will provide read and write speeds of around 530, 500 megabytes with a SATA connection. But the M.2, when you use this, it's called the NVMe Express as the controller, that can process as much as 3,500 megabytes per second, which is 7 times faster than the SATA drive and 35 times faster than a standard hard disk drive. Now, here's where size does matter. The model number tells you the physical size of the M.2 solid state drive. And all models use 4 numbers, and those 4 numbers, the first 2 digits are always 22. What is 22? Well, that represents the width of that new solid state drive in millimeters. The next 2 numbers are the length in millimeters. And you might see 80, 60, 42, 30, and that gives you model numbers that correspond with those numbers like 2280, 2260, etc. The longer size provides more flash memory capacity, while the smaller size will easily fit into thin ultrabooks and other very small type computer devices. Now, M.2 drives can be either SATA or NVMe Express using the PCIe protocol. The same physical size, but it's hard to tell maybe from this picture, but they have slightly different pin connections. The thing to remember is the NVMe Express has the faster read and write speeds. Now, Amazon, I just checked for the heck of it, offers 2 M.2 drives, a Samsung model, 2 terabyte for about $320, and a Western Digital Blue, 1 terabyte for about $105. So you want to install an M.2 in an existing computer? The very and most important consideration is to determine if your motherboard has a dedicated M.2 connector slot. So the best way to find that out is to go to the computer manufacturer's website. They should be able to provide you with motherboard specifications that will answer this question. If your motherboard does not have a specific M.2 connection slot, then you don't need to go any further if you want to direct connectivity, because you won't be able to have it. Now, depending on its type and functionality, an M.2 drive can use either the older SATA interface or this newer NVMe Express, that stands for Non-Volatile Memory Express Interface Protocol. If you're going to use the SATA interface, then basically it's going to be about the same speed as a 2.5-inch drive. If you want that faster speeds, then you have to make sure the M.2 drive can utilize the NVMe Express communications protocol. So I was in the market to purchase a new computer. And so now that I learned about this, I specifically looked for one with an M.2 solid state drive already installed that uses the NVMe interface protocol. I found one, I'm setting it up, and I'm going to give you more about that new computer and considerations I used in making that purchase in a future presentation. But for now, let me just suggest those that have a further interest in this, there are numerous videos on YouTube providing all the information you could want just by typing M.2 SSD in the YouTube search box. One of my favorites was provided by an entity known as PowerCert Animated Videos. The explanation is clear, and they use animated videos for people like me So it's easy to follow and understand. And the good news is it's less than 7 minutes long.
Happily, all these are short compared to most videos. Now, there is one other thing in the last two videos I want to clarify. They said there were 4 sizes. There's actually about 7 sizes, but the 2 smaller sizes I've never seen in the United States. The other one is a 22-110 for 110 millimeter in length, but a lot of motherboards cannot handle over an 80. And in a laptop, I have a couple laptops that use 2260s. You cannot put a 2280 in them, let alone a 22-110.
An M.2 SSD. I mean, seriously, look at how tiny that is. And to think that you can now fit terabytes of storage on something this small for really not much more money than a traditional hard drive or a larger solid state drive. Now, if you've been PC building for a while, you'll remember what a big deal it was when solid state drives started replacing traditional hard drives in our build list recommendations. The improved performance of SSDs became impossible to ignore once the price started to come down. Well, we're basically getting there with M.2 drives now. If you're starting a build from scratch in 2020, there's a very good chance that something like this could be the only storage you need, period. Now, one thing we'll see a lot of online is confusion over terms like M.2 and NVMe and how they relate to form factor and performance. So let's try to clear that up a little. First, to be very clear, M.2 and NVMe are not interchangeable terms, but they are very closely linked. M.2 is a form factor, which refers to the size and shape of the drive. Technically, a lot of different devices could use the M.2 expansion slot, but SSDs are by far the most common right now. Unlike standard hard drives and solid state drives, M.2 drives aren't connected to a motherboard via a cable. Instead, they're plugged directly into the motherboard using a dedicated M.2 connector slot. Depending on its type and functionality, an M.2 drive can make use of either the standard SATA interface or the faster PCIe interface to transfer data. But in both cases, it plugs directly into the motherboard. Since they fold down and lie flush with the motherboard, once they're connected, rather than jutting out like a graphics card or a RAM module, M.2 drives allow for a cleaner, less cluttered PC interior with fewer cables to manage and better airflow. It's important to note that M.2 SSDs, which use the older SATA interface, aren't really faster than standard 2.5-inch SSDs. They just take up less space and they look cleaner. If you want faster speeds, you'll need to make sure your M.2 drive is utilizing PCIe and the NVMe interface protocol. NVMe stands for Non-Volatile Memory Express, and it refers to the way in which data is moved rather than the shape of the drive itself. The main way in which it differs from the existing SATA standard is that it draws on your motherboard's PCIe interface to obtain notably faster data transfer speeds than what you can get from SATA. Depending on your NVMe drive's manufacturer, you can see speeds as much as 5 or 6 times faster than a SATA-based equivalent. And if you want the very fastest options available, you'll want a drive in a system that can take advantage of the latest PCIe standard, PCIe 4. If you're planning on going with an M.2 drive while building or upgrading your gaming PC, it's important to note whether you're getting a SATA-based drive or a PCIe NVMe-based drive. Your motherboard might not have the appropriate M.2 slots for both types, because SATA and NVMe M.2 drives are often keyed slightly differently. And even if it does, you don't want to waste money on a pricier NVMe drive if the motherboard you've chosen can only access data using the SATA protocol, as not every motherboard allows for PCIe data transfers. As always, read your specs closely before you make your purchase. So, one more time to recap. M.2 is a form factor for SSDs, NVMe refers to the way data is moved to and from the SSD, Not all M.2 drives use NVMe, but the fastest ones do. By contrast, most drives that use NVMe are in the M.2 form factor, with few rare exceptions. At this point, it's pretty much inevitable that M.2 NVMe drives are going to continue to grow in popularity and replace traditional hard drives and larger solid-state drives. If you'd like more info, you can hit the links in the description below this video to check out M.2 SSDs on Newegg. PC storage has come a long way over the past decade. In the comments below this video, share some thoughts. What are your predictions for what PC storage will look like by the year 2030 and beyond? It's gotta be crystals, right? Like some kind of magic crystal? As always, thanks so much for watching.
Okay, now the last video I've got is really got no sound, but it's the content that is important. Gotta bring that up and stop it. And I gotta stop sharing. Then I gotta share again. Click there, bring that up. Right, let me preface this last video. It's about 5 minutes long. There's no verbiage. All it is 3 panels. The left panel is a hard drive. The one in the middle is a SATA SSD, and the right panel is NVMe. Note the times at the top. They're all doing the same thing, and the first demo is loading Windows 10 on 3 different computers that this is demonstrating. All the other demos are games loading in. And notice the difference between the hard drive and any SSD. Whoa. It's not showing the video portion. There we go. Okay. Now that's a general idea of the difference between hard drives and solid state drives of any kind. Now I want to preface this a little bit. There's two factors that you should be aware of. Early drives were more sensitive. They didn't have as long a life. Modern drives have long life, and there's another key factor. In 2019 and prior, you had to manually make between 8 and 10 adjustments on your own, or sometimes with a management tool from the manufacturer to help you do those changes. This was because Windows is designed to work with spinning hard drives, not solid state drives. And some characteristics in Windows were to facilitate using a spinning hard drive that are not needed and can be very detrimental to solid state drives. Second, there are 4 different basic structures of the SSDs. The SSDs come in SLC format, which is a single layer. There's DLC, which is dual layer. It's like having 2 SSDs on top of one another within the chip. TLC is 3 layers, and QLC, or also called QVC, is a quad layer. But the bad part about the quad layer is it gives you a performance hit. For boot up drives with your Windows operating system and your programs, you want to use a TLC structured drive and use QLC or QVC drives primarily for data storage. If you were a game player, you would put copies of all your games on a QVC, and you won't notice the degradation compared to a TLC for your boot drive. It's a very important feature. SSDs, even on computers, and I've got old ones here, show marked improvement for SATA drives, whether your controller is a SATA 3 controller, a SATA 2 controller, or a SATA 1 controller. All have big improvements that you can actually see and feel in your day-to-day use of the computer. However, since 2020, Windows got rid of a bug that used to be in Windows that did not do well with SSDs. The bug could cause premature failure of the drives. But since 2020, that bug doesn't appear. And so people should have very long lives on their SSDs. And a lot of the tuning and tweaking we had to do manually in the past, we can forget about it and take advantage of the system as is. So these are some of the nice little gotchas, if you will, that people can take advantage of on having an SSD. Most of my systems, I'm running 8 gigs of memory with a 2.5 factor SSD, much like this here. That's just an example of the size. But I have a few systems. Most of them use an NVMe, but I do have one of these that this is an NVMe. I do have one just like it. That's a SATA drive. And this is a 2280 that I'm holding up there. You leave this label on, and if you you can use the SATA version on a machine that has PCIe 2 compliance. You can tell that by having a different video interface card called a PCIe X16 for a plug-in video card. And it'll support at least a SATA SSD M.2, but you'll have to have an adapter to plug in to handle it. But you will be able to plug in a 2.5-inch SATA drive with cables to the regular motherboard controller. With a board that handles PCIe 3 protocol standard, you can get up to 3 gigabytes transfer speed on your system with NVMe. And as a result, if you use that protocol, it will be a lot faster. But you might also need to add an aluminum heatsink on that because of that higher speed. If you got a newer machine with PCIe 4, you definitely have to have an aluminum heatsink on that SSD if it's NVMe protocol, because it's going to generate way too much speed, going as high as 6 gigabytes per second. If you get the brand new, mostly this year, board that has the PCIe 5, there's a good chance you're going to need more than just an aluminum heatsink. You're going to need probably water cooling, because the speeds really jump again. And we don't know exactly when, but it could be 2023 late or 2024. And we'll probably be looking at PCIe version 6 with even more speed. Whether M.2 continues on that future version, I don't think anybody knows right at the moment. These are all nice little gotchas. And I gave you a PDF file in the chat if you download it. And in there are various articles to give you some idea of tools. Many manufacturers of brand name ones like Samsung, Western Digital, Crucial, Corsair, and several other brands have the manufacturer's software they download. These have a big advantage. I can't demo one of them because the machines I'm on are not using a Samsung drive in them. Some of my laptops do. But generally speaking, the manufacturer's tools give you a whole bunch of advantages. They can give you a picture of the health of the drive and how full it is. Never, like on a hard drive, go over 70% full, because it starts slowing down even with an SSD. Number two, there's firmware updates. At least a couple times a year, you need to do a check for a firmware update on SSDs. A third one, some of the manufacturers have something like in Samsung's Magician software, you have something called Turbo Boost, and others call it something different. What it does is it gives you a burst of additional speed on an SSD for that maker's drive. If you get a generic drive, there are some generic pieces of software in that list of tools that'll help you get more out of the drive, but you may not be able to get a firmware update. Firmware updates are like we have in our routers. It's software that goes into an electronic device called EEPROM. And it has very limited capabilities. It's like an operating system of its own. It takes instructions from your computer's OS like Windows or Linux or Mac and sends the instructions to the controller in the drive that figures out how to retrieve whatever information you want or where to start writing new information out to the drive for storage. That's all done behind the scenes. When you delete files in an SSD, you have an issue. It's done automatically now, but in the not too distant past, you had to also do a trim operation. Now it's automatic. Trim operation says you got deleted files. They're physically there. The real estate they covered has not been given up for use by the system until a trim operation resets what is free and available. And thank God it's automatic now, because in the some operating systems in the past, you had to manually do this all the time. So those are some additional improvements that have come along the last couple of years. They make life a lot easier. I don't know. Al, you might want to mute Tony. At any rate, generally speaking, the SSDs are quite dramatic improvement. They can take old systems and make them from a doorstop or paperweight into a production system again. The systems I'm on right now are antiques by most standards. They're around 13 to 15 years old. They actually have SATA 2 controller that I've upgraded to a 3. They have, one has built-in gigabit Ethernet, which I use Ethernet a lot, and the other one does not. I had to add a card for that function to raise from 100 megabit interface to a gigabit. And both of them run SATA 3 level 2.5-inch drives for the operating system, all the programs. And I use a spinning hard drive in both systems for general data storage only. These are some of the various features that I can do magic on. Another person in the audience here is Tom O'Connor. Recently, I worked with Tom on a laptop of his that had an AMD A10 processor in it. It originally had probably 4 gigs. He added 2 gigs to it for 6 gigs. It was a dog. He complained about it in an Ed Keating meeting in the Northwest Computer Club. So I got with him and we swapped out his spinning hard drive for a solid state drive. And he had also, prior to that, upgraded his memory to 16 gigs, which didn't improve anything because it wasn't memory that was holding them back. It was the hard drive and the processor. Well, he has corrected one. You can't change the processor he has in the machine. Tom, would you have anything to say about your laptop?
Well, what I can say is it's extremely fast. It's probably about 5 times or better faster than it was. And tonight's meeting, I was on both machines to talk on this machine or this meeting. And right now I've shut off the desktop because there's some software in it that's choking it. That's why I was breaking up so bad trying to use it.
Most likely it's internal components that needs upgrading, just like your laptop.
Okay.
I'll bet on it. But generally speaking, at this point, if anybody's got any questions, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
You made a comment, Tim, about one of the smaller drives. I've got one of the smaller drives. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. This is a M.2. It's only 42 millimeters, but this drive only has 512 gigabytes. And I had this installed in a NUC that I had to send back to. But it's a very fast little drive. And the machine is built just to handle one of these drives and one of the larger M.2s.
I've got a couple laptops that use 2260s, and it's got a pair of them. So I can either configure them as a RAID 1 or a RAID 0, or I can use them as 2 separate normal drives. Anybody else got questions? Well, everybody must be very educated.
I don't know. I have a question. Yes, it is a question. You were talking about as you go up higher, you made that these drives are water cooled. Is it water or is it some kind of special liquid?
Well, it's a special liquid, but they call it water cooled because it looks clear like water unless they add a tint to it.
Okay, all right.
But it's when it's done properly, it's a sealed system. Think of it like a internal combustion engine's cooling system. It works much in the same manner for computers. They've been using this on high-end gamers on CPU chips for a lot of years. And also in more recent years, they've even started using water cool on the high-end graphical cards they plug in place of just aluminum radial fins and a fan because they didn't provide enough cooling. Well, as we get more and more speed for these NVMe style SSDs, you're going to be pushing more speed, generating more heat, and that's going to require more cooling than just an aluminum heat sink on that drive, even with a fan practically blowing directly on it to get enough heat off of that device to prevent failure of the SSD. Otherwise, you burn up your electronics, basically speaking. I haven't mentioned it before, but there is no single choke point in a computer. Your motherboard has a chipset. That can be a governing factor. Your CPU, there's all different characteristics in the family of the same CPU. Speed, cache buffers, things like that. They make a big factor. You have the memory type and speed of the memory that you go into. You have the storage device and what it's capable of doing. And for the majority of us, the internet is a factor. Having the right interface. When you're on Zoom, it's best to have Ethernet instead of Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is radio waves. They're not perfect. A lot of things can interfere with the radio waves, and you won't have that on Ethernet. And even the upcoming Wi-Fi 7 configuration that's coming up will not beat gigabit Ethernet. Also, at least Comcast and I think it was T-Mobile are working on getting speeds of 5 to 10 gigabit per second because of the metaverse. That's AR, VR with a visor. And how many people are going to take advantage of that considering the cost, and you got to have a machine that can handle it. Besides internet speeds that are very, very high compared to anything we've got today. And God knows what the cost is going to be. Anybody got anything else?
One thing I can add about that SSD we've put in my laptop is the difference in the heat coming out for compared to that hard drive. It's much cooler system than it was.
Yeah, Tom's laptop, he was noting the heat, and he has it on a laptop cooler with fans underneath trying to help cool it down. So he's saying now it runs cooler with the SSD in it in place of the spinning hard drive. So that's another plus. Anybody else got anything? Okay, Al.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much. We appreciate it. I'll stop our recording now.
Recording stopped.
And we'll go back to our gallery view. There we are. Now we see everybody. Okay, where are we? This should be our tips, tricks, and traps portion of our program. From the looks of this audience, there's not much tips and tricks that you guys need. Larry, unmute yourself.
No, I don't need much fix. I'm simplistic on my use of my computer. As long as Zoom works, I'm fine.
Well, I'm still using a 5th generation NUC, and I had a 11th generation that I've mentioned before. I couldn't remove one little screw on that motherboard to install this small drive. And as a result, I had to send it back to where I bought it. And their tech support looked at it, they said they'll just send it back to Intel. And they have not yet gotten new supplies of that 11th generation machine. So I'm still waiting for my 11th generation machine.
I'd pray they give you a 12th generation because it's even better.
Well, I believe that's what's going to happen. That the 12 will beat the 11 back. I don't know. If it does, that's okay. I won't complain about that. But we just need a new machine. Right now, I can't put Windows 11 on this machine, and I don't have the wherewithal today to do any workarounds. If the machine won't work, throw it away. I don't have the energy to work for a machine. The machine is supposed to work for me. And if it doesn't work, I throw it away, get rid of it. I just don't have the energy or the wherewithal to do it. Any other comments?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
With the laptop I'm currently using, I've tried to get it to use an external camera instead of the one it's got built in. I've got the camera plugged in, but it seems like it doesn't recognize it.
You have
And
to
yeah.
switch the cameras in Zoom.
Switch them in Zoom.
Yep. You have multiple devices. You have to decide which one is active.
Okay, how would I go about do that? Do I
That's-
stop the
that's it.
video?
No, it's done in the taskbar on the left side. You have one for audio and one for video. They have up arrows. Click on the up arrows and you'll see a menu, and it tells you what device it's using now and what's available. You have to switch it to see if the switch will go over to the other device.
Aha.
See?
Hey, you switched.
Yeah, as soon as I knew where to go to.
Well, also too, the same thing applies for your audio. You're using your boom mic right now, probably, but the laptop has a built-in mic that you could also select and use. And I think that external camera, since it's USB plugged in, it has a mic, so you can use that one too. So you got 3 mics to choose from.
Oh my goodness. It does say that it's got a microphone on that.
Oh yeah, it's there's a mic inside the laptop display next to the camera. It's just a little pinhole, and you've got one on the webcam that you plugged into the USB port, and that you're using the camera of right now. And anytime you plug in the headset, you have its boom mic, unless it's only just the earpieces and no microphone.
Yeah, it does show 3. One is the, how do you say this? It shows the, how do you say it? A USB 2.0 mic. The one that's checked off is the headset.
Yeah. Yep.
There's one that's for the same as the system, which is probably the one that's the computer.
Built in. That's right.
And the other one is probably the one that's on the camera.
Yes.
Would you mind if I try to see what that does for us?
Go ahead.
Well, I switched to that. Can you hear me on it?
Yeah.
Your tone changed.
Sound quality is different. Also, if you use, as Tim has pointed out, if you use anything other than the headset microphone, if you have a microphone in your headset, you will catch more of the room noise. So like we're now hearing some stuff going on around you.
Probably echo from your voice bouncing off of the walls.
No, there seems to be something else.
No, there is a small fan cooling stuff down, so that's probably what you're hearing.
Could be.
Okay, so I went back to the headset. So that's fine with me.
Yeah, you get lots of options in Zoom.
I didn't know you could do this. Thank you for pointing it out.
This latest version of Zoom has a feature that I just discovered today. And I'll show it if I can. It's a whiteboard. And do you all see the whiteboard?
Yeah.
You all see it?
Yeah.
If you're making a presentation.
Yeah, we can turn off our lights in the rooms because their screens are lighting up the room.
If you're making a presentation, you can well use the board. You could put text on it. And you can erase some of it. You can do pictures.
Does that work with touchscreen too, Al?
Sir,
Does that work also with the touchscreen?
I'm off, I can't hear you. I don't know who's talking, but I can't hear you.
Okay,
But
is it
anyhow.
better now?
Okay,
Oh. Yeah, I was wondering if the touchscreen would let you draw on that whiteboard if you had touchscreen or.
well, touchscreens allow you to do that, but this is built strictly within Zoom. It's a Zoom feature. It has nothing to do with my screen. Yeah, if you've got these same tools are available to you on your screen, on certain software on your screens, right? Okay, any other comments or questions or thoughts or ideas, attitudes? Our next meeting is in May. As of right now, we don't have on May 17th is the date of the meeting. We don't have a program yet. But what I was looking for someone who could give us a discussion on cyber currency. Cyber currency is making a big headway in the world. And there's a lot people don't know about cyber currency. And I don't know enough about it to talk about it. But I'm looking for someone who knows it. We're going to research the history of it, bring us up to date on the configurations and where you think we're going to go with cyber currency. But I haven't come up with anyone yet. So anyone have an idea, thoughts for themselves and want to do that? I hear Sanford was a cyber expert. Maybe we could twist his arm a little bit and get him turned on to talking about cyber currency. Is that right, Sanford? And we can't hear you because you're muted. Okay, with that.
One thing that I think it was at a different meeting, Sanford and I, and maybe others were talking about for another meeting doing a presentation on NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, and how they relate to these cryptocurrencies, things of that nature. And what I tentatively agreed to was, I think it's going to be around August. For one of the other meetings, I think it's West Side. I think we have me penciled in for doing a presentation there that would expand from the basic concepts, which you want, on up through what they're now doing with non-fungible stuff that doesn't even exist in the real world that you can buy and sell.
Well, if you want to prelude your August presentation with our May presentation, we'd welcome you to.
Let me see how it goes. I might have a little bit of material. What's difficult about it for me is just as Tim has difficulty getting the computer stuff down to a more basic level, trying to just sift out just the most important concepts and trying to get them across in a way that doesn't take up like about 2 or 3 hours. Just trying to keep it simple enough so that people who are new to it are going to have a good grasp of it. And I personally don't invest in this stuff, so I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, drop me a note if you think you can do an hour or so presentation in May 17th.
We'll see how my time goes. It's quite possible.
Well, thanks for the volunteering. Okay, guys, any other comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, feelings, attitudes, suppositions?
Tim said he had put something in chat that we could download. I don't see it in mine, but.
The very first chat item should be a download.
Oh,
2 items in chat.
It's there. I'm looking at it right now.
It's
There's
there.
the very
it didn't
first
show up on
item
mine. I
is,
came in late, so maybe it didn't pick it up.
Well,
look at the chat. It's the very
Good.
first item. It's a PDF file. Click it and download it.
so it should still be there.
No, there's nothing in my chat.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Shut it down.
Maybe it didn't download on there when I came in.
Shut your chat down.
I have a comment.
Yes, comment.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Dennis?
Right now, I've been trying out the Chromebook along with the this other computer. In regards to the chat, on the laptop, I have Tim's presentation. There it is to click on to download. And then I see second Bob's comment, not seeing the video being shared. But on my Chromebook, the only thing that appears in chat is Bob's comment. The presentation is not on the Chromebook, and I don't know why, but it's not there.
It's there, but Bob's is after my posting. I'll see if I can do it again.
But what I'm saying
Okay,
is,
I just,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. There's a difference in two machines.
yeah,
Two machines are displaying different things.
right now on the laptop, I see Tim's presentation posted twice. On the Chromebook, it's neither one of them is there.
You're not seeing it at all.
Yeah,
No,
it just
no,
showed
no
up. It just showed up on mine now.
well, you're probably seeing, Harry, the second one.
Yeah,
Why you're not seeing the first one, the only thing I can think of is the time you came into the meeting compared to when it was posted the first time.
yeah, that's what I thought.
as
Maybe I
far
was
as-
late, so I missed it.
As far as Dennis on the Chromebook, you have to make certain you've got the latest, greatest Zoom version on it, probably. That's a guess.
That shouldn't make any difference. The version shouldn't make any difference at this stage. It really shouldn't. But have you tried to shut your chat down and bring it back up again? Dennis, try it. Just shut it down.
I got 3 items in my chat.
Pardon, Larry?
I have 3 items in my chat.
Right, 2 of
Did
them
that
are
make
my
it-
presentation and the other one's Bob's comment.
Yeah, I closed the chat on the Chromebook and opened it up again. It only shows Bob's comment and no
No
nothing else.
download. You don't
It,
get the download.
It must be the,
Built into the
Chromebook.
machine. It's a-
yeah, it's gotta be the Chromebook.
It's a machine, it's a machine failure.
Zoom on Chromebook, and also people have commented on iPads when they've used those. It doesn't work the same way. There apparently are more limitations on what it can do.
Yeah,
And
apparently you can't see what files are put out there for people to download.
yeah, downloading files may be one of the things you wouldn't be able to do on a Chromebook. Because you might be using an app rather than the same Zoom that the rest of us are using.
I think it is an app on Chromebooks. I played with it a little bit way back a couple years ago, and I mostly use Zoom on a regular PC or Linux.
Harry, did you get the download?
Yeah, I did. I just,
Okay.
it came through that time.
Any other shortcomings on anyone? Any other comments or questions or thoughts, attitudes? Okay, with that, I'm gonna shut us down. We can sit here and chit chat all night. We won't come up with anything positive. So it takes 2 clicks of the mouse and your screens will go dark. Thank you guys for coming. Our next meeting